An international station for an international city. This is Radio 3.
Good morning, this is Peter Lewis. It's Monday the 5th of October. Welcome back to Money Talk after the long weekend. Hope you had a great break.
Money Talk on RTHK Radio 3.
It's 8:24. Let's go up to Shanghai and join independent economist Andy Shi. Morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Let me ask you, first of all, we had some data coming out last week, just before the national holidays started. We had the manufacturing PMI for September, came in at 51.5, compared to 51 the previous month. The services PMI came in at 55.9 versus 55.2 in the previous month. Let me ask you your thoughts, first of all, about that latest data.
Well, I think that we still see exports recovering, positive year-on-year growth, and we're seeing automobile production year-on-year growth for the month. So manufacturing that does have a positive growth, I think, but it's not really high growth. We see that it's exports are single digit. Automobile single digit, that kind of thing.
And is it growth that's coming at quite a heavy price, given the amount of sort of stimulus and support that the government is having to provide for manufacturers?
I think that mainly it's China's exports are dependent on the stimulus in other countries. And the major economies fell by about 10% in the second quarter. Probably a big negative number for the third quarter. In this kind of environment, Chinese exports are still growing. It's just amazing because other people are not working, but they still get money from their governments to spend. So China is benefiting disproportionately from that.
But there's a limit. There's a limit, isn't there, to how long that can go on, because the governments in the US and Europe just simply are struggling to afford this at the moment.
Well, if the second stimulus package in the U.S. doesn't come through, we will see exports struggling pretty soon. So I think that story for China is not as so sustainable, and so we're in single digit growth, low single digit growth rate right now, and it's still fragile situation.
And we are seeing profits in the industrial sector grow. We saw that the profits number last week as well, but I'm still a little bit bemused about how that's happening, given that top line growth, revenue growth, is pretty stagnant, and also there's deflation at the factory gate as well, which normally affects profit margins. So I'm slightly surprised. Are you surprised to see that the profits are doing so well for Chinese manufacturers and industrial companies?
Well, I think the accounting data in China are pretty unreliable overall. You look at listed companies, the stock, the cumulative performance is quite poor. Chinese stock prices, despite a tremendous economic growth over the last 22 decades, usually down. So it means that these guys are not making money along the way. That is really due to overcapacity, because China keeps pushing investment, leads to overinvestment and overcapacity. So I think the profit numbers are not very reliable.
Okay.
And usually, the private companies they report big numbers when they want to get listed and get money in the stock market. So
you think we should take those numbers with a bit of a pinch of salt?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, what about the next 5-year plan? The top leadership is going to be meeting this month to discuss their economic blueprint at the conclave that's going to be held from the 26th to the 29th. Are you expecting talk about this new dual circulation strategy that's being talked about? Is that going to figure predominantly in the next 5-year plan?
I think that's a talking point. It's really for propaganda purpose. It's I think in terms of the real substance, it's really about becoming technology independent from the U.S. So that's where the money is going. And obviously, that when you spend heavily on duplicating technologies, it's not very productive. So it's not very good for economic growth. I think that's the most important thing: is security, self-reliance, security including technology and food and energy. So the focus is on security and not on growth. I think the dual circulation is really propaganda to make both people and other countries think that China has a growth strategy. I don't think that it's a growth strategy.
So this is more of a political economic strategy than one that's going to actually necessarily generate economic growth.
Right. I think it's really about protecting the political system, make the political system less vulnerable to international pressure.
So what will that mean for economic growth? I mean, clearly, we're not going to see the same sort of growth in the next 5 years as we've seen in the last 5 years, but how much do you think growth is going to be impacted?
I think that it's a low single digit is something the government is willing to accept. Because that's not a priority right now.
So does that mean that they're going to miss their target of doubling people's incomes over the 10-year period that they were talking about? Presumably, that's not going to be talked about so much now.
No, I don't think so. I think that we're talking about food security and technology self-reliance. It's income is not a priority.
So self-reliance is going to be the word in this next conclave, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so.
Andy, always a pleasure to talk to you. Enjoy the rest of the National Week holidays. Thank you very much for coming onto the programme this morning. That's Shanghai-based independent economist Andy Shi.
You're listening to Money Talk on RTHK Radio 3.